Good morning. Welcome to Unity of Springfield. It's New Thought and World Religions class. And my name is Wendy Fredrickson. And we all take turns leading this class and sharing our metaphysical insights and ideas. And so today, as I was getting ready for this class, Spirit just kept on to me that I needed to move in this direction, that I needed to do this today. And I kind of resisted, but I ended up choosing to follow Spirit's lead and do this today. So we're really not, most of it isn't really interactive, because what I'm doing is going to tell you my story into metaphysics and the things that I have come to know through that journey in metaphysics. And if you'll just bear with me in the very beginning, I'm going to have to go to a little dark place to begin with, but we won't stay there long. So in this lifetime, coming into this world, I came into a family where my biological father came out of multi-generational ritual abuse of every kind you can imagine. His grandfather came over from the Scottish clans, and if you have studied anything about the Scottish clans, they were pretty dark. And that grandfather kidnapped his wife, took her to Ireland, married her there, and took her to America. And my mother came from a very strong religion that believed in ideas of Satan and the war in heaven, and that we were down here to be tried and tested so that we could prove our worth to find our way into the good place afterward. And so that's kind of where I came to. And in that, I have 4 sisters and a brother who have the same parents. And there was a lot of abuse that went on in that, growing up in that. And so when I grew up in all of that, I learned that there is a devil and there are demons. And the power of that in this world was so great and so awful. But I also learned there was a war going on and I needed to be on the side of good. Only it seemed like the side of good was so powerless against this horrible, horrible darkness. And I tried for a lot of years, and finally, in the end of '89, I knew that there was nothing, that I was not going to be one of those who made it. I knew that I was not one of the strong ones. I couldn't do it. And so I made a decision that even though I was going to go spend eternity in hell, I was going to take out as many of these people that I knew existed, and I knew who they were, and I knew where they lived. And I decided I was going to take out as many of them. I couldn't be good, but at least I could get rid of some of the evil. So I went out and practiced shooting a gun, and was thinking about getting a gun and trying to figure out how to do that. And totally ready within days. And I went to sleep and I had a dream. And in my dream, I had gotten the gun and I went out, and it seemed like that all of the evil in the world had kind of this glow, not a lovely glow, but had this glow. So they were easy to see. And so I got my weapon and I went out and I killed them all in my dream. And then I began to notice that there were children walking around who had that glow. And I thought, oh, these must be the children like me that are never going to measure up. because they're filled with the darkness already, like I was. And so in my dream, I had to go into schools and kill all of the children that had that glow. But then after I killed the children that had that glow, I started to notice that their classmates began to glow, and their teachers began to glow, and their families, the other family members in some of them, began to glow. And what I recognized is that there was no way to destroy evil in this world that way. I couldn't join the battle of fighting evil and killing evil, because the act of fighting against it only created more of it. And I woke up and I was just sweating. And I sat up in bed and I asked the first metaphysical question: how do you stop the perpetrator without becoming the perpetrator? And that was the first step to my journey in metaphysics. So, and one of the things that had happened due to all of that stuff is, even as a small child, I felt like human beings were just horrible. Humanity was, I did not want to be part of that. I did not feel a part of it, nor did I want to join humanity. And I would, as a small child, stand outside, and I would stand up, and even as an adult, I would stand outside and look up at the stars, and I would beg my people from my planet to come and get me and take me away from this horrible world of hell and misery. And I had a loving mother, and I had siblings that I loved, but they were obviously victims, and I couldn't help them. You know, it's almost worse, because you have these humans that you love and want to protect, but I didn't know how to do that. So I would stand out and call my people to me, and so after that, asking that question, then there started to be a series of things that happened that led, like I watched a documentary on Russia, and Russia, it was like, oh my gosh, I've got to go there, the Lake Baikal area. It was like, I was just called to it. I started studying Russian. It was like, that mattered, it was important. And then a friend of mine met her husband-to-be over the internet, and there was a man that I seemed to click with, and we both went down to meet these two individuals, and hers ended up being her husband. And this man that I met was not husband material, but he was a stone cutter who cut a stone called seraphinite from the Lake Baikal, Russia area. And so I did work for him in order to earn a couple of those stones. I did house cleaning for him. And there was nothing to listen to except these tapes called Abraham. And I put those tapes on, and the first time I heard them, I didn't hear what they said, I didn't message. The first time I heard their voice, I know you've seen in things where someone is so emotional that their legs drop underneath of them, and my legs dropped underneath me. I fell to the floor, and I actually cried, which I had probably done twice before in my life. And I cried, and it was like these were my people. So I got a fanny pack. I could afford 4 tapes, and I had rechargeable batteries, and when I was awake, it was in my ear. And I argued with them because they talked about things that were not true. They talked about who we were in this life, and there was nothing true in what they talked about. And I said, I would sit and argue. I'd be standing there looked like a schizophrenic talking, arguing with them, because this is a lie. This is a lie you're telling me. But you're my people. How can you be telling me this lie? And after literally almost 2 years of listening to them, the day came when, again, all the power left my body, and I dropped to the ground the same way. And I went, oh my God, this is who we are. This is what this world is. This is why we're here. And I saw the whole beautiful picture and plan of who we are, of this beautiful life. And what I recognized as I looked at what had happened through those eyes is I recognize one of the most beautiful first principles that is in that. And that is that God and the universe, or whatever you want to call it, whatever name you have for it or idea you have for it, is always working for us, is always leading us to our best desired good. And I love Emma Curtis Hopkins, and she talks about there is only God, there is only good. And I saw that. I saw in that how that's the truth about us, and that everybody, even my biological father and his family, it was a warped, messed up way to try to find their good, to try to feel powerful. But even in following that darkness that they were following, they were still trying to find their good. And I also saw that in the situation of my life, as within everybody's lives, God never causes bad things to happen, which I was always taught that, God did bad things so that you could be tested and tried, so that you could be figured if you were worthy. But I knew that God never caused any of these bad things to happen, and God would never manipulate us to try to make us, force us to be good. That was part of the vision that I saw. But that God's energy is always working with us right where we are. It's working through the crack of least resistance in our lives, which for me at the beginning was that dream. And that we're so supported. And the other thing I found, one of the other truths, I'm just going to tell you about some of the truths that I came to through that. And one of them is that and prior to that, all I had wanted was out of this world and out of life. And after that moment, I saw this incredible big L life, God life, that we're all a part of, this eternal life that we're all a part of. And I no longer wanted to get out of it. I no longer wanted to die and get out of it. As a matter of fact, I was eager not only for what this life had to offer in this incarnation, but what the rest of this big eternal life had to offer. And what I knew is that this life is so beautifully orchestrated that 10 billion or 100 billion people can live out their individual realities while living together on a single earth. And there is enough room and enough energy to support everyone's unique journey in truth. And in fact, this abundant diversity is a big part of what makes this whole big life work. And I knew that another person's life or truth could not ever impose itself on me and on my world unless I gave it my creative attention. So the first thing I'm going to say to anybody who's listening to this, because I know I've said a lot of things that there are people going to go, that's not true, just like I did. That can't be. And what I know is that everybody is not here to understand these things, or to practice them, or to be in this particular church. And in the very first Abraham tape that I listened to, when it said to me this advice, and I'm going to give it to everybody listening. They said, if you're listening to this and it resonates with you, then stay and listen some more and practice it and learn it. But if it does not resonate with you, put it down and go find what does. There are many mansions in my Father's kingdom. This is not the only way. and go find what does. And then it said, and if this resonates with you, and sometime in the future, you find that it no longer resonates with you, put it down and go find what does. So I'll leave that first truth with you that I found in there. So, then we come to who we are. What I learned in that of who we are. Well, to start with, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are not human beings at all. We are vibrational beings. We are spirit beings. We might say we're spirit beings experiencing a human experience. That would be more like it. And this manifest, focused being called Wendy is only the demonstration of my current thought or vibrational stance. Now, what they would talk about our vibrational stance is a compilation of many things. And in Unity, we talk about we are what we think and that it's all about our thoughts. But I believe that it's more. And what I saw is it's more than just our thoughts, because it is our thoughts. It is what we give our focus to. That's part of our vibrational stance. But it's also created by our desires, the desires that we have here, the desires that we had before we came here, and the dreams that we have for our life. And part of it are our intentions. Our intentions for this world and for ourselves and for our life. It's our focus and attention. I already said that. It is also the very nature of us as spiritual beings. That's built into our vibrational stance. That's why when I came into this horrible darkness of a world that seemed to take me completely away from who I really was, I never could do that, because my vibrational nature, my nature as a spiritual being and the essence of God never leaves. That's always part of us, always calling us. And so that's part of it. So we're always that spiritual creative being who is seeking our good. Part of our vibrational stance is our beliefs, the current beliefs that we have about everything. The current beliefs maybe that we have about being a mother, that we have about being a woman or a man or a citizen of the United States, or there's just a brother or sister, everything. All of those beliefs are part of our stance. And our experiential programming. So I was taught that demons were real. I was taught that they came after me. And guys, I experienced the demons as real coming after me. Okay? So our experiences, the experiential base that we have, and that we base our choices on, and we base the way that we see the world, is part of that stance. Now, that seems like a lot, and trying to control all of that seems like, oh my gosh, just overwhelming. But what I also saw is that we have this innate power within us to change that vibrational stance, to tweak it by changing our thoughts within any of those areas. And that we don't have to take it, we don't have to change everything. We don't have to do it all in one big, huge effort of perfection, coming to perfection. That one little change, one little knowledge, one little idea about something different changes that vibrational stance and begins to change the world that we live in, the reality that we're experiencing. The other thing one of the other things that I learned about us, and I have to tell you, this didn't come instantly. I saw it, but I didn't own it instantly. This happened, this aha awakening happened in 91, and the Abraham came in 89. And I'm still learning how to apply these principles. But I knew in that first moment who we really are, and that we are totally trustworthy, to wield this amazing power to come into this life and to create. We are absolutely trustworthy. We do not have to earn it, nor do we have to prove ourselves worthy. We already are worthy, and we're valuable, and we're powerful, and we're good at the very core of who we are, and that we're creative and eternal loved beings.
Were you ever able to just say, I don't want to have anything to do with those demons anymore and get out of my life?
Well, I'll talk about that, where we came to that part. And matter of fact, it was funny that years later, I was, again, it's a journey. It's a journey to come from a whole way of seeing the world and then to be able to shift it piece by piece while living, being in the world but not of the world. And one of the times I was doing automatic writing because it seemed so stuck, and I kept saying, please let me know what it is that I need to know so that I can move forward here. And I'm doing it, and my hand goes and it writes, thou art loved, thou art loved, thou art loved, over and over and over. And I had determined I was going to do this for 15 minutes a day until I got the answer. And a year later, I'm sitting down with my 15 minutes a day writing, thou art loved, thou art loved, thou art loved. And I go, okay, all right, I get it, I'm loved. Now will you please answer my question? And I went, oh crap. That's the answer. All I need to know is that I am loved, that I am loved. And that's why I say, from this perspective, it seems like some of this stuff is like, duh, with all that, I should have got that. But it's a journey, guys, it's a journey. But I know that, and now I know that. I know that. I used to look in the mirror and I saw a monster. And I look in the mirror now and I see this amazing creative being who's on this journey with all of you, amazing creative beings. And just recently, I've had a hard time. I still just recently had a hard time living in this world with humans, not relating with humans. And I won't go to the whole thing. Again, it was with dreams and everything. But what I realized is I had been trying to live in a world with humans. And that wasn't the way to do it. What if instead I chose to live in a world with amazing, trustworthy, valuable, powerful, good, creative, eternal, beloved beings? And when I see that in every face, and I'm doing that now, and it's beginning to change my fear of you. And that sounds silly that I should still fear you. But I'm working through those things. It's still a journey. But now I see you that way. And the other thing, I told you we didn't come in here to be tested or judged. We can never be more than we are in this very moment. And we can never be less than the expression of God. And nothing that we do here in this physical arena can damage that truth of who we are. And one of the consequences of being raised by my father is he was very interested in death. So he played a lot of things to do with death and bringing you close to death and things when I was a child. And what that did was gave me a stronger connection to the other side than a lot of people normally would experience in this world. So that when my son passed at age 19, and he came to me, and he came to me in the presence of another person who saw him. He came in a full body manifestation. That's the only time that's ever happened to me. And he said to me, Mom, the only thing that matters in this life, the only thing that goes on with us is love. And it's just such a waste of your time in this world. Anything else that where you're not loving is such a waste of time. Well, I told that to my very fundamental mother, and of course she believed if I didn't believe in Satan and I wasn't fighting the good fight, she believed that I was going to go to hell. and everything. But I told her, I said, Mom, there's not judgment waiting. All that's waiting is love. And that was very hard for her to accept in any way. And later, when she and my stepdad and my youngest sister, they were in a head-on collision with a coal truck that killed my dad. He's my dad. The one I see as my dad was my stepdad. It killed him instantly. And my mom actually crossed and came back. And when she came back and she was in the critical care place and we went in to see her and everything, the first thing she said to me is she said, Wendy, you were right. All that is waiting there is love. It's it's a love like you never imagined and have never felt. It's so beautiful. And she said, I just wanted to stay, but my sister needed her. My younger sister needed her, and she came back into her real damaged body and lived out many more years. So I also want to, if you've not ever watched any of Terry McBride, not the singer, but the Science of Mind, and I don't think they even call it that anymore, minister, and he has a wonderful book called The Hell I Cant, and he says it beautifully. I'm just going to share his words. And he healed himself where the doctors told him that he would forever have a colostomy, that's probably the wrong word, a bag on him and not be able to walk and not be able to have relations with his wife. And that's why his book is, well, The Hell I Can't. He's studied these and has lived a long life. He's in his 80s, maybe 90s by now. But this is what he says. We are already whole and holy. We already have and are using our Christ power fully. We have the right and ability to use this power any way we like. Everything we do, say, and think carries with it divine authority. We can use this power consciously. We can believe in the life we want to live, and we can create it. So the next section and the last section I have here to share with you is on why we are here. And again, I'm going to go to Terry McBride and read what he says here because it's so succinctly put. This life is not about enduring or going with the flow. It is about changing and redirecting the flow. It isn't about giving up earthly attachments to what you want. It's about making your dreams come true. It proclaims that the road to God is through personal aspirations and priorities, not about doing God's will. And this is my own thing. I had heard someone say in a 12-step meeting, what if God's will and my will are the same? And it was like I got hit by a bolt of electricity when I heard that. What if God's will and our will is the same? Back to Terry. It is only through this creative process that we get an experience of who we are and of the divine reality that some call God. Whatever you believe to be true about God or good, declare that it is also true about yourself. And I'm a Trekkie. I love Star Trek, okay? I've watched just about every episode there is and own just about every episode there is. And in Voyager, Captain Janeway, if you don't know who she is, they're on this planet, and on this planet, one of her crew members, Cass, walks in the wrong place and gets hit and is unconscious and dying. And what she learns is that this is a sacred shrine where there are prophets that guide the people that take care of this shrine. It's a religious shrine, and that it's possible to go to these prophets and get some help to be able to find out how to help her crew member. So she walks into the place, and the person there who is going to guide her through this process says to her, you do know that this is your journey, and everything that you experience here is your choice. There's nothing you have to do. It's your choice. And Captain Janeway, who has always science and work hard and make it happen and everything. She's like, well, what do we need to do? What do we need to do? So they put her in this room with a bunch of old folks, and they're all just chatting and stuff like that. And she goes, well, this is nice, but do I need to go through that door to start this journey? And they said, well, why do you want to do that? Why don't you just sit here and talk with us? Well, I need to get this done. She's in trouble. I need to save her. I need to do this. And they're like, well, okay. She goes through the door, and she's, what do I have to do? Is what task do I have to overcome? And she stands with weights until she's just like, can hardly stand it, and she climbs up things, and she actually goes into a place where she sticks her hand down into a basket where something bites her, and she's killed and put and buried into the ground. And then she comes back, and she goes, am I ready? Am I ready now to know this and to know what to do? And the woman says, I told you when you first came here, you're the one that's making all this up. I don't know. What do you need to do? You think you're ready? I don't know. You tell me. What's next? And she goes, yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready. And they take her back in to sit with the old folks. And the old folks are sitting there and talk to her. And they finally go, she's like, you're the prophets, aren't you? And they go, yeah. And she says, what do I need to do? And they said, are you ready? And she goes, am I ready? And they said, yeah. Are you ready? And she goes, yeah, I think I'm ready. And all she has to do is walk back through the same door with her crew member that almost killed her crew member to start with. She had to have the faith and walk through. And it's the same thing here as we come into this metaphysical journey. We're creating these amazing, wonderful stories and dramas here, but we don't have to make them difficult. We don't have to make suffering. We don't have to do that. We can do something else. And there's a book by James P. Carse that I had read many years ago called Finite and Infinite Games. And in that book, he says there's one game going on. And people who know me, I love to play games. We play a lot of games and have fun at our house. And Carr says there's one infinite game, but there are many finite games within the infinite game. And finite games, they're wonderful. We love those. We come here to play them, where we have a beginning and we have an end, and we make rules and we interact. And sometimes there's winners and sometimes there's losers even in those games. And we learn and grow and have those experiences, even though we don't have to do that. We love the game. We love it. But really there's only one infinite game, and that infinite game has no beginning and no end and no rules. And the only aspect of that infinite game is we love to include as many beings as possible into that wonderful infinite game and play it together. And so we come to the part where Nancy was wondering, did anything change? And many years ago, again, metaphysics never came into my life until 1989. And I had a grandmother that she had long hair down to her bottom. And when my grandfather died, she said she'd never cut it because that's what he wanted. So I would go over once a week and wash it and set it and then spend the night with her. And then I would do it up in French twist for her to last the week. And one time I was doing that. I was doing her hair, and I came into a moment. This was long before metaphysics. There was one moment, again, this is spirit was working with us, and I was standing doing her hair, and I went into a place that I could have lived in for eternity. It was like being in the presence of good and God and everything wonderful. And it was a moment, and yet it felt like forever. Well, because of what I've learned because of what I learned about these things, and I've begun practicing these principles of metaphysics that I learned, at the time that I was doing this, I never had a phone because I could get threatening phone calls. And I had lots of experiences with people. There were lots of abusive men in this world still. I was still living in this world that demonstrated a lot of what I had grown up with. And so I just began to use it a little bit at a time, reaching a point where in my mind, I took all of those people who I had seen as perpetrators and I turned them into small babies and I gave them to loving parents in my head. And as I began to love them and began to not see them as enemies, they just started moving out of my life. The people who were violent, it was just like, they just started slowly disappearing. They no longer showed up. And as I played with the games of abundance, things started changing with abundance. I started having the wherewithal to do the things that I wanted. Things began to change in that. Even my physical body, which has kind of been the last bastion for me to really understand and create exactly how I want to, even that began to change. I lost hundreds of pounds to get to this place. And that changed. And a relationship with the other side and with spirit began to develop that instead of the guidance working for me in the background, it began to work with me in the foreground. And so, and the demons, they disappeared. They were no longer there. I didn't do anything but change what was within me, but change my way I looked at them, to stop looking for demons and to just bless where that all came from and said, but I'm creating a new story now. I'm doing a new story, and in my new story, I don't have to have demons. And they disappeared. And so through that, I've come to this place to being in unity, creating a loving relationship with Don. Don and I have been together now for over 20 years. And I created him in my mind before he ever showed up, before he ever came. And then he showed up. And I had this incredibly wonderful poet, husband, that playmate. We just live in our house, in our home. We live in heaven on earth. We literally live. And that moment of bliss that I had with my grandmother, I create that all the time. I create it standing in the line, in a line in the second-hand store. So I'm standing in line, and there's this big giant of a man standing in front of me. And one of the things I do is I practice these things in places, and I found myself becoming anxious standing in lines, or, why don't they do this, or why don't they do that? And I'm going, that is not what I want to create in my life. So instead I changed it, and I said, you know what? Standing in line, standing here, the place where I now stand is a very good place. Heaven is as real and as here right in this moment standing in line as anywhere else. So I'm standing in line thinking those thoughts, and this guy is standing there and he's explaining how his house had burned and how he was coming with a voucher to get furniture, and he was talking and going on, and so the line, was going on, and finally he turned around to me and he goes, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. That he said, I just need to get this straight before I get someone to come and bring a truck here. And I just looked at him and I said, the place where I now stand is a very good place, and heaven is here standing beside you. And he just stopped and he looked at me. And he just looked at me, and we just looked into each other's eyes. And he said, can I touch your face? And he put his hand down to my face, and I reached up and I touched his face. And we looked in each other's eyes, and I was right back into that moment in eternity that I could have stood there forever in that moment with this stranger who was really not a stranger. And that happens all the time now, because I know who I really am, and I know what life is, and I know what it's supposed to be in the moments here. And again, why I love Unity is because in Unity, they have that message. They teach that message, and they're no different than me. We all bumble at it. We all get it sometimes, and sometimes we don't. We're not perfect here. We're still learning. But at least that's here, and in the groups and stuff that meet here. And that's why I'm here talking about it right now. And so I guess at this point right now, I'd just like to open this up for the rest of it. That's basically what I have. If just somebody has any questions, but not only that, each one of us, I know, has an amazing story of their own adventure into the place that they are now, and maybe not share the whole thing most like I have done here, but maybe could share some of their experiences that happened that to demonstrate that thing that they've always been cared for, that it's always been behind us, watching us, that wonderful, wonderful power that is with us. So I don't know if anybody here is that, and if not, then I'll go ahead and start talking about some principles. But this was basically what I had prepared.
First of all, I just wanted to say thank you so much.
Can't hear you.
Is it not on?
Oh, yeah, there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Get it really
Boy,
close.
it's like you have to bat the lips right on it. Thank you so much for that really amazing and, just personal story that you shared, because it was really beautiful. And I think we could all learn from each other so much, Wendy, that I think, we have a lot to learn from you too, in your journey. I can only share one thing that just, because I was trying to think, what could I share? And it was a time when I had just finished chemotherapy treatments for my cancer when I was 30 years old. And at the time I was living in a trailer, and it was in the woods, and I had, the only kind of clearing was at a driveway that I had put some rock down, so that I could drive in and out of this wooded area. And it was late at night and it was dark. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face. And all of a sudden there was light all around me. I mean, it was light as day. And I could see the trees around me, and I could see everything so vivid. And I thought at first, this is a helicopter shining a spotlight down on me, and how in the world did it know I was here? And I looked up, and all I could see were the stars. And it just stayed. It stayed, and it stayed, and it stayed. And I kept thinking, this thing is going to disappear, but it never did. And finally, I thought, I've got to go into the trailer and get my wife and my kids to come out and see this incredible light that is just, it just shined all around me. And of course, when I went into the trailer and got everybody and came out, it was gone. But to this day, I have not a clue what that light is, other than to believe that light is there for all of us. And for some reason, the process that I went through in this life-altering, part of my life, was trying to tell me, I think, that we are light. we are that beautiful manifestation of light, and it is there with us all the time.
Thank you.
Well, in 1988, I was going to work one morning. I live in Unity of Springfield, and I work in Fort Scott, Kansas. And I got somebody pulled out in front of me, and I was in a terrific car accident. And before that, I was living in a not so healthy lifestyle. And after that, that accident changed the brain chemistry in my body from male to female. And that is what caused me to see that I needed to make a different direction in my life.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you.
I think
Really close.
the most, I feel like the most blessed man that I could imagine, having lived 3 lives in one. I've had 3 wonderful wives. I love them all, and it seems almost like I was guided through every experience, every one of the lives and every one of the wives were perfectly fitted to me, as if they were tailored to fit where I was in my advancement through life. And I like to think about being drawn through life on gossamer strings, ever so gently, but ever so certainly, that I just know that God loves everyone the same way He loves me.
That was my husband, Don, and to know how perfectly aligned all that was. He has only dated 3 women in his whole life. He's only kissed 3 women in his whole life. And he married each one of them and had a wonderful life until the first 2, he had 34 years with the first wife and she passed, and then 11 years with the second wife and she passed. So he has had some adventures. And this is a good time right now. I wanted to share, I told you my husband is a poet, and it's one of the things that happened for him. So when he was 69, his second beloved wife passed, and he was left on his own again. And he, pushing 70, it's kind of like, do you just kind of get old and go cross 2? But instead he made a choice. He made a choice to ask for more. And he wanted something, asked that he be given a reason to stay here. And he was a scientist. That's what he did. He worked in a lab and a soil scientist. That's how he fed his family and raised his family and everything, and never really had, not even really read much poetry at all, not really interested in it or taken it. And when he asked that question, again, the questions and the things we ask for have great power, and he asked that, he started to get poems in his dreams, and it was so unusual to him that he even went to a psychologist to see if he was going crazy, and she told him that was a normal thing. What'd she call it?
A wake-up call.
A wake-up call is what she said. And he believed enough in her that he decided to allow it into his life. So I brought with me today a poem that he wrote about what I've talked about. That's really wonderful, and I wanted to share it with you. And it's called Beyond the Third Dimension. Infinity is a concept beyond our finite minds, though we bandy fancy words about quite foreign to mankind. An example is omniscience. Most don't know all it means. We don't even know all the questions, and our answers seem quite lean. Our planet is really quite finite here in this physical realm. Infinity seems quite nebulous and bound to overwhelm. Clearly in the physical, infinities over our heads. The 3 dimensions confine us. That's all that can be said. But infinity seems a given in matters of the soul. Space-time and dimensions simply play no role. All is simultaneous and available to all. Unlimited thoughts and knowing when you hear the call. For tapping into divine mind multiplies our power, where peace, love, and presence cause wisdom to burst into flower. Then as a son of God, suddenly we perceive nothing is withheld from us that we can believe. As solar rays have warmed our days since time was first begun, all blessing is available to each and every one, as if we were the only son who ever walked the earth, are each of the 8 billion souls who were given birth. God is no respecter of persons, loving all her children well, waiting for us to waken from our sleeping spell. When we awake enough to take the blessings heaven proffers, we'll rub our eyes and accept the prize as each blessing occurs. Infinite is the eternal source, and infinite our supply. Infinite is the love she bears, and our benefit thereby. And infinite is our potential beyond all the eye can see. Even imagination pales at all that we can be. Beautiful. So if anybody has any questions, we've got, are we ready to stop now, or?
No, you can, let's see. We have 3 minutes.
Okay, then we're ready to, go ahead. Thank you.
Let's give Wendy a big round of applause. As I said, that was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Wendy. I'm going to go ahead and read the announcements. Linda, would you mind passing the basket around?
It's not turned on.
No, it's not. Oh. That might help. If all else fails, turn it on. Okay, the announcements. This is it. The indoor yard sale is June 3rd and 4th. That's next weekend, by the way. You can bring your donations Tuesday and Wednesday, 10 to 6 p.m. Thursday 10 to 4. Clothing and small furniture pieces acceptable. No electronics. Bring your stuff and your able bodies to help set up and arrange for the sale. All purchases are on a love offering, and then you'll also have the opportunity to help pack and reset the sanctuary and fellowship hall for Sunday service. So if you're going to be in service today, please stick around. It really goes so much faster when everybody can do a little bit. If you're not available to help with setup and tear down, the volunteers always like to be fed lunch. Bring food. Okay, the next thing was about the New Thought and World Religions class presentation for next week, and it's changed.
Oh, okay.
So Dan interrupted me right in the middle of the class and just said his sister has passed, and they're doing a celebration of life next Sunday when he was going to be speaking. So Dan will not be doing the class, so we'll find somebody else, but haven't had any time to think about that yet or put that word out. No cookie Sunday on June 5th, but we are having a salad and summer treats potluck on June 12th following the celebration service. Oh, this is great news here. Stephanie Barton will be presenting Angels Among Us workshop that afternoon at 1:30. That'd be June 12th. The fee to attend is $20. You can register in the office or online. If you haven't seen Stephanie Barton, she is absolutely phenomenal. Today, after the service, we'll be flipping the sanctuary to yard sale ready. Please plan to stay and help. Many hands make light work. We are grateful to Karen Krago for her service on the board and understanding of her resignation we're happy to announce that Stella Wilbur has been appointed to fill the remainder of Karen's term. Thank you, Stella. Stella is also stepping in as the liaison for publicity and marketing. She is forming a committee with interest and experience in publicity and marketing. There's a sign-up sheet in the foyer to join the committee. New ideas are always welcome. And again, thanks, Stella. And let's get together in the back. Did the basket get passed around, by the way? Yeah. Okay, great.